2024年9月17日，一股颶風喺西加勒比海地區附近生成，美國國家颶風中心隨即開始監測。9月23日923，海倫 Helene 接近尤卡坦半島嘅時候，增強為熱帶風暴，並正式命名。9月25日，海倫發展成為颶風，係2024年大西洋颶風季第8個命名嘅熱帶氣旋，亦係今年第5個颶風同第2個達到4級強度嘅颶風。海倫係截至2024年影響佛羅里達大灣地區嘅最強颶風，亦係有歷史以嚟吹襲該地區嘅最強颶風，為美國東南部造成大規模破壞同傷亡。大家冇聽錯，呢次颶風海倫係吹襲佛羅里達大灣地區嘅最強颶風。喺海倫預計登陸前，佛羅里達州同喬治亞州已經宣布進入緊急狀態，預計將產生重大影響，包括沿海風暴潮及遠至內陸城市亞特蘭大嘅颶風強度陣風。由於海倫移動迅速，颶風警報範圍擴大至內陸地區。呢場風暴造成災難性降雨，並引發洪水，特別喺北卡羅來納州西部同田納西州東部，更引發好多龍捲風。
When this week began, hardly anyone was talking about a storm named Helene. Tonight, it's all anyone is talking about along the Florida coast and across the deep south. As we come on the air right now, Category 4 Hurricane Helene powering its way ashore on Florida's iconic Big Bend region. Forecasters have warned it could gain even more strength before official landfall just a few hours from now. The hugely powerful storm captured in these images, taken from a Hurricane Hunter plane, producing sustained winds of 130 miles per hour. The sprawling mass of Helene, a jaw-dropping 500 miles in diameter. Already tonight, some dramatic images of the storm's surge, water rushing beneath Florida's Matlacha Bridge, a storm surge of up to 20 feet forecasted. Virtually the entire west coast of Florida under hurricane and storm surge alerts.
Some are calling this Tallahassee's most dangerous storm event ever. You can see the streets are empty right now. People are hunkering down. The rain is just starting to pick up. It is quite calm right now, but we know it's going to be a very, very violent night. As you just showed our viewers, this is a massive storm affecting almost all of Florida, and right now on a collision course with millions of its residents. Tonight, that monster hurricane Helene aiming for Florida's capital, destroying these docks as Tallahassee braces for catastrophe.
This area has not had a major hurricane hit in quite some time, and certainly nobody in recent memory has seen a storm of this magnitude that has hit.
With a foot of rain and triple-digit winds in the forecast, residents bracing for power outages and floodwaters raging in.
130-mile-per-hour winds, but it's moving a little faster now, moving northeast at 23 miles per hour, a Category 4 storm with tornado watches from the Carolinas down to the Keys, some tornado warnings embedded in there as well. Landfall somewhere tonight between 8 and 11 p.m., and what we're looking at is that dangerous storm surge 10 to 20 feet from Apalachicola to south of Cedar Key. Tampa Bay may see its all-time worst. Wind gusts from 75 to 110 miles per hour along the Florida Panhandle. Tomorrow, as we move into Georgia, 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts all along the I-95 corridor. A lot of damage. We could be looking at a major flood event across the Appalachians, but down in the Panhandle, into the mid-Appalachians, we're talking, Lester, 10 to 20 inches of rain. The flooding could be catastrophic, lasting right on into early next week.
9月25日，颶風海倫過境墨西哥東部同古巴西部，造成古巴西部同中部多省電力系統受損。古巴首都哈瓦那42條主配電線路受損，影響約5萬用戶。比那爾德里奧省約8.4萬用戶受影響。阿特米薩省受影響用戶約16萬，佔全省80%。此外，古巴中西部地區農業生產亦遭受損失，種植木薯、香蕉、豆類等作物嘅農田均遭到唔同程度嘅損害。9月26日，颶風海倫以每小時220公里嘅最大持續風速喺佛羅里達州大灣地區附近登陸，並迅速向內陸移動，引發降雨同洪水。美國國家颶風中心形容海倫係一個非常大嘅風暴系統， 並呼籲颶風路徑上嘅居民遵守強制撤離令，否則將面臨生命危險。中心主任布瑞南表示，沿海地區將面臨難以生存嘅情況，暴雨足以摧毀建築物，並捲起汽車衝往內陸。海倫橫掃美國東南部，6個州已經宣布進入緊急狀態。佛羅里達州多地沿海民眾喺登陸前已經接到疏散通知。美國供電時況追蹤網站資料顯示，颶風喺佛羅里達州、喬治亞州、南卡羅來納州同北卡羅來納州共導致超過400萬用戶斷電，大量道路同橋樑受損。海倫引發從佛羅里達州至維珍尼亞州嘅嚴重洪水，死亡人數或會更高。由於該地區手機信號塔全部癱瘓，幾百人尚未同親人取得聯繫，下落不明。
Big wind, guys! Here they come! Whoa!
All right, we are about to get piped here in Perry. Eye wall, dangerous eye wall coming right in. We got big easterlies, 150-mile-an-hour winds. Power's about to go out all over town.
I am right in the eye of Category 4, Hurricane Helene. We are just inland. We are in Perry right now. Winds are going to be gusting over 100 miles an hour shortly here. Big time winds in the eye wall. Wow, listen to it rip! Really ripping out here. Woo! Category 4 hurricane.
This morning, a monster storm unleashing its fury overnight on Florida's Gulf Coast. Hurricane Helene, a catastrophic Category 4, showing no mercy, destroying property, flooding hotel lobbies, businesses, and homes, and submerging vehicles in oceans of water.
This is terrible.
Helene not only bringing hurricane-force winds to the region, but also a historic storm surge. And tonight, on top of all this, the threat of tornadoes. Violent winds up to 100 miles per hour slamming into Florida. Floodwaters sending waves over this highway in Tampa. And treacherous driving conditions with trees blocking roads and this boat completely shored up. Unsurvivable storm surge transforming neighborhoods with chest-high water in some areas and homes completely flooded inside, leaving this man to take refuge in a kayak, and torrents of water slamming into bridges as well, turning roads into rivers. All of it inundating towns right in the center of Florida's Gulf coastline.
I've worked here in this organization for 21 years. These are the highest surge numbers I've ever seen.
And this moment lighting up the night sky, showing what appears to be a possible transformer exploding in St. Petersburg. The storm leaving more than 1 million customers without power across the region. Tampa General putting up an aqua fence in place to keep the water at bay, and it held up. And facing dangerous conditions with one crew in Pinellas County encountering homes engulfed in flames.
Anybody in your house?
In Clearwater, the elderly helped to safety, being carried out by first responders.
Once the winds start getting up to a certain point, we even have to hunker down.
And extraordinary rescues captured on camera, like the Coast Guard saving this man and his dog after his sailboat capsized off Sanibel Island.
And we're back out now live with the damage here in Perry, Florida. Emergency management officials up and down the coast are pleading with Floridians this morning to please stay inside of their homes if there was damage in their city or towns, because when you see images like this, it is just still too dangerous. And in some cases, Hoda, rescues are still happening.
That's video of crews racing to rescue people trapped inside burning homes in that part of Florida.
Tens of thousands of people are now homeless, their houses washed away by flooding and mudslides. Millions more living without power, clean water, and access to phone and internet service. Because communications are so hit and miss, estimates of just how many people are still missing vary wildly. The high-end estimates is in the thousands. With so many people still unaccounted for, cadaver dogs are now joining the search crews to try to cover more ground.
sitting by the window. Deal with the guy outside.
Hey, there's someone coming!
Yep. Oh, come on, baby. Miss us. It's gonna hit the pool though right here. Holy. It just ripped it in half. Holy.
All of this flood water has to go back into, will go back into the rivers and the streams and continue to swell the banks. So look right over here, just incredible imagery. This is maybe a power pole right here, a metal barrel down that way. And by the way, Pam, inside this brick building, there is a man there that I saw him speaking on the phone, perhaps looking a little bit distressed, gave him the thumbs up. He said he's okay, but I would think that he's stuck in there.
Whoa. 喺佛羅里達州西北部嘅泰勒縣佩里市，有人影到公路旁邊有電線桿不敵強風被吹倒，燒着附近嘅樹木。有住宅區嚴重水浸。美國國家颶風中心話，海倫尼當地星期四深夜以4級颶風嘅姿態登陸鄰近佩里市墨西哥灣沿岸嘅大本德地區，最高持續風速每小時225公里，沿岸地區預料出現高達6.1米嘅風暴潮。閉路電視影到佛羅里達州有住宅區疑似出現龍捲風，有人喺車內被吹倒嘅交通指示牌砸中死亡。除咗佛羅里達、佐治亞同北卡羅來納州都有狂風暴雨，數以百萬計嘅住戶同商戶冇電力供應，連同阿拉巴馬同弗吉尼亞等多個州頒布進入緊急狀態。隨住海倫尼快速移入內陸，強度亦都逐步減弱，但係當局警告風暴仍然可能帶嚟災難性嘅強風同水浸，多處都發布龍捲風警報，下令部分縣嘅居民疏散，又呼籲留守家園嘅民眾用雙頭筆喺身上寫低個人資料，一旦有任何不測，都方便當局後續記認。
This is an unprecedented storm, and it's causing us to have an unprecedented response.
This is the city of Asheville in the western mountains of North Carolina, 2,000 feet above sea level and hundreds of miles away from the nearest coastline. But such was the force of Hurricane Helene that nowhere in its path was safe.
We are surging search and rescue teams to help rescue people who are still stranded but can't communicate because cell phone service is down.
As many as 600 people are still on the missing list as search teams fan out across the state, navigating the worst flooding to hit the region in a century, with thousands of downed trees, power and mobile outages, and hundreds of closed roads.
It's undescribable. I don't know, it just was covered in litter and trees and mud, and it's stinky, and it was all the way up the street up here. It just looked like the bottom of a river.
And this is the surface of Lake Lure, an hour below the mountains of Asheville, now an apocalyptic stew of rubble and debris after Helene ripped through the state, unleashing torrential downpours and catastrophic mudslides, killing 47 in North Carolina alone so far, and more than 115 in total since last Thursday. Homes were swept away in the storm that had been a Category 1 just the day before, but in a now all too familiar tale, Helene picked up massive amounts of energy from the unusually warm Gulf waters, exacerbated, scientists say, by climate change. The result was a 350-mile wide, devastating storm with wind speeds up to 140 miles an hour at their peak. This is the second powerful hurricane to hit parts of America in just over 2 months. And many predict scenes of devastation, not just on the coast, but deep into the country, could become the norm as rising temperatures from human-induced climate change take their ever more destructive toll.
水淹将近1层楼高，都还没有消退，整区建筑全被泥水包围。美国东南部包括北卡罗来纳、田纳西等州日前遭遇飓风海伦侵袭，造成严重水患。受灾最严重的北卡阿什维尔，房屋道路严重受损，甚至发生了土石流，加上倒塌的路树阻挡当地物资运送。
This is the most devastating thing I've ever seen in our whole city. I think that the loss of life, the fact that if you don't have cash, you can't get anything. We've gone to stores, water's out, ice is out. People slept overnight at gas stations. I feel like we've never seen this before.
这场风暴造成的损坏，也导致北卡一座湖泊布满漂浮的树木、垃圾，甚至是房屋残骸碎片。而根据了解，海伦席卷美国，不仅导致数百万人无电可用，通讯也中断，在6个州造成的死亡人数仍持续攀升，并且有约600多人下落不明失踪。当局表示，未来不排除死亡人数还会大幅攀升。
And this is what we are seeing. One of those communities along the Big Bend that took a gut punch from Helene, and virtually everywhere you look, it is the same thing. Let me show you across the street. This church here looks like it was gutted. First responders recorded the storm surge as it first came in. By our measure, it went up 8 feet.
It makes you just want to cry. I mean, excuse me. I did cry. Okay. Sorry. It's okay. It's terrible. These people are hurting.
We were here just before Helene roared in. Business owners took as much as they could to higher ground. Hannah Healy emptied out her shop. She even pulled out parts of her wall. The water came in so violently, it lifted the floor and busted the doors open. Some of her neighbors fared even worse.
It's extremely sad, but I haven't got time to worry about sad.
The small town's mayor says crews are desperately trying to turn the power back on.
You want to clean up something, you need water. To get water, you need electric. To get electric, you need the lines done. People have to be able to go to the bathroom. We need help, but I can't bring help in if there's no facilities.
喺佛羅里達州，一輛 Tesla 浸喺車房內爆炸自燃，46秒內火勢迅速蔓延，車房濃煙密布，十分嚇人。當局發布警告，呼籲居民對被水浸過嘅電動車採取緊急措施以防自燃，建議車主將車送往經銷商檢查，確認安全後先至駕駛。暴雨洪水導致北卡羅來納州西部多條道路封閉，部分居民被洪水圍困，等待救援。風暴仲導致佛羅里達州同喬治亞州多條鐵路客運線路中斷，多個州嘅快遞投遞暫停或受限，大量道路同公園關閉。救援人員強調，搜救工作仍在進行。北卡羅來納州西部洪水警告仍然有效，當局憂慮堤壩情況。班科姆縣一度約1000人失聯，親屬正透過有限嘅流動服務尋找家人。災後，幾千人入住避難所。北卡羅來納州州長庫珀表示，呢場風暴帶嚟咗歷史性嘅災難性破壞。截至10月2日，海倫颶風已經造成180人死亡，成為50年嚟襲擊美國本土第2嚴重嘅颶風，僅次於2005年嘅颶風卡特里娜。10個州約270萬戶仍然停電，其中南卡羅來納州至今有25人喪生，係35年嚟導致最多人死亡嘅風暴。喺北卡羅來納州一處發現大量遺體，令死亡人數進一步上升。初步估計，海倫造成嘅經濟損失介乎950億美元到1100億美元，折合約7386億至8552億港元。呢場風暴成為美國現代史上損失最慘重嘅風暴之一。
And take a look at this. New satellite images are giving us a new look at the aftermath of Helene. These are before and after images of Old Fort and Spruce Pine in western North Carolina. You can see several homes, roads, and cars now washed away. I feel like every day we are seeing new images and videos unfold that just
shocking.
The tragedy.
It's almost incomprehensible. You look at it and go, that can't be.
Yeah, and you're hearing from people that are there that it is so much worse than what you're even seeing on
Without
TV.
That, and all the workers who've come back down and said it is worse.
以下係用衛星拍攝颶風海倫吹襲美國6個州份後，災前同災後嘅對比圖。
The full extent of Helene's destructive toll just now coming into focus.
We have no water, we have no power.
After the rising waters rushed through these communities, forcing some to puncture holes in their roofs just to escape their homes. New satellite images show how floodwaters overwhelmed the French Broad River, and video showing dramatic landslides in the mountains, all causing widespread destruction. As residents in Swannanoa, just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, are getting their first look at the storm's devastation.
There's probably about 8 to 12 inches of mud.
You basically would sink in mud.
Oh, yeah.
In Asheville, Mission Hospital's 100-bed ER forced to take care of 200 patients, staff treating the sick and injured in triage tents with limited resources. And while so many have lost so much, for those left with something to clean up,
I'm so glad it survived.
Finding even a small memento is monumental.
These are things you can't get back. There's no amount of FEMA that will put these pictures back in the frame.
As people here, guys, are taking solace right now in the little things, there are significant challenges ahead between 3 different states. North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. There are roughly still 1 million people with no power. The projections for this part of western North Carolina, many people will have their power back by Friday, but still no timeline at all. Officials don't even want to venture to make one as to when running water might return.
Tonight, the staggering human toll from Hurricane Helene. More than 200 killed, countless communities crippled. In Asheville, the North Carolina National Guard working 24/7 to get those supplies out into the field.
We've been running supplies to fire stations, homeless shelters, schools where they have temporary airfields set up just to get supplies out so they can distribute those out to communities, just to get them to people in need who are stranded or just low on supplies.
But with hundreds of roads impassable, troops can only go so far. Outside Asheville and Swannanoa, we found volunteers using pack mules to get insulin over those last rugged steps up the mountain to families in need.
Thank you guys for clearing the path.
You know, to be able to put 4 or 5 mules in a row, you know, with one person leading them, you know, they're able to carry 150 pounds each to get supplies, which is more effective.
Meanwhile, in Tennessee, the Attorney General launching a criminal investigation into the owner of the Impact Plastics factory in Irwin. Videos posted to social media showing Helene's floodwater swallowing cars in the factory's parking lot. 2 employees did not survive. Jacob Ingram among some workers alleging permission to leave the facility came too late.
截至10月4日，颶風海倫席捲6個州，造成至少215人罹難。海倫登陸前，美國國家氣象局已經發出10多條手機推播警告，並使用緊急、將危及生命、災難等強烈措辭，強調災難程度，要求民眾盡速疏散。但仍然有人唔相信，認為當局誇大其詞而冇撤離。而家佢哋非常後悔。海倫將成為北卡羅來納州亞什維爾市有歷史以嚟最強風災。215位罹難者裏面，至少72人居住喺亞什維爾同班康郡周邊。美國總統拜登視察災情後表示，重建將花費幾十億美元，國會需要採取行動，保證受颶風影響各州具備充足資源應對災情。
Well, today marks 1 week since Hurricane Helene hit the Carolinas. The storm now being blamed for at least 215 deaths, making it the deadliest hurricane to hit the mainland U.S. since Hurricane Katrina. Of those 215 lives lost, about half of them are in North Carolina. And with hundreds of people still missing this morning, that number is only expected to go up. Emergency crews are now working around the clock to clear roads and restore power for those in the hardest hit areas. Speaking of outages, we are staying on top of the latest numbers across the Carolinas. Right now, more than 500,000 are still in the dark. We just checked moments ago, and in South Carolina, almost 300,000 people are still without power. The majority of those outages are in the western part of the state. And in North Carolina, more than 240,000 people are still without power. Most of those are in the mountain counties. But during a visit to Asheville yesterday, Governor Roy Cooper said he expects 90% of the state's power to be restored by week's end. And in just a few hours, the governor is expected to visit the small mountain town of Canton to assess the damage there. He plans to visit Jackson and Haywood counties today. Cooper says he will thank volunteers and hopes to speak with those impacted by the storm.
顯然，颶風海倫係今年美國破壞力最大嘅暴風，為世人帶嚟災難性嘅人命以及財產損失。